Hi there, and welcome to Module 1P of my full Python course for beginners. If you have not enrolled already, please subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. So today we're going to talk about the idea of string concatenation. It's going to be pretty quick. It's just for making a lot of programs, you're going to want to be able to speak like a human a little bit. And so by that I mean, I'm saying a sentence, and maybe I could do something like, I have 10 numbers, I want to compute the average of them. Okay, the average of them is 7. And I want to say the average is 7. I want a computer to be able to speak like that. And to do this, you are often going to need something like string concatenation, where string is for text. And so if we're concatenating, that's basically saying, my sentence right now that I'm speaking, this is a sentence. You could treat that as the concatenation of this space is space, space sentence, maybe exclamation mark, right? So I could do that as this is a sentence. So that is a proper way to speak in Python. That's totally fine. But a possibly different way, which we'll see very shortly as to why we're going to need this, is you can also speak just like this, where all I'm doing is separating stuff by giving them a space and what the actual word was. So this is a, and then plus space sentence. Okay, so if I run that, that is actually totally fine. It's saying this plus is plus space a plus space sentence exclamation mark forms entirely this is a sentence. Now, a lot of the time you're going to need to, as I said, include numbers or something like that in here. So say that we had an average and it was equal to 7. So we did some calculation and we said, okay, the average, let's just say up here, we computed an average, APG, and it is equal to 7. Well, I want to be able to say the average is 7. Well, of course, I could do that by saying the average is 7, except that only works if we know the average beforehand, because the term is hard coding the fact that it is 7 in here. We want this part to be adjusted so that we can include this as a variable of whatever we calculated. So whatever our average happened to be, I want to be able to say the average is, basically, I want to say average. All right, I want to be able to do this. Does that work? No, and it says can only concatenate string, not int to string. This is a great error message because it's saying, okay, no, you can't concatenate an integer because, at least not a string to an integer. You could do addition between integers. You could say 1 plus 2 is totally fine. But what you can't do is say, hey, plus 2. You cannot do that. That doesn't make any sense. At least not to Python, it doesn't. Maybe to other programming languages it does. So what we're going to do is actually convert this integer to a string. And there's a huge conversation about converting types, which is less popular in Python, but in something like C, it's huge. We're not going to talk too much about it. The idea is that if you have an integer whose type is, we have an integer 7, its type is int. If we call the function stir on this thing, then what that does is it converts it to a string in a logical way. So if it's the integer of 7, well, it converts it to that. If we have the string of 7.56, well, it converts it to the string of 7.56. Pretty easy, right? So we can just go ahead and call str on this thing and say the average is whatever the average happened to be, it's going to plug it in there. All right, there's a bunch of other ways to do this. You may have seen the format method in Python. It's a little complicated and we're not going to worry about that right now. This is actually just fine. So I hope you liked it. This is now the last module, or the last part of the module. The next part is a final project for the whole module. You worked really hard, so congratulations. I will see you in the final project.